Deputy Ellis. Deputy, 5 minutes, please.
Minister, the intent of this motion and directive, it is claimed, is to support the fast-tracking of the planning process in order for modular units to be put in place. Yet the title is very misleading. The motion masquerades as something to do with the need to urgently increase the supply of social housing. But under any fair and responsible consideration of what social housing is, modular units for emergency homeless accommodation does not meet that definition. Modular housing is an ugly and messy emergency measure to provide a roof over the head of families who have become homeless, who so far have been dependent on B&Bs and hotel rooms, which provide them with no access to cooking or other badly needed amenities in accommodation. A kitchen counter does not make up a home. If the government wanted to urgently increase the supply of social housing, it should have fast-tracked planning for social housing 5 years ago. It could have taken all the money it spent on emergency accommodation over the last 5 years and put that into delivering social housing. Instead, it has waited, it has dragged its heels, it has directly hurt those in housing need and those most at risk of homelessness through cuts, and it has done little else bar compile plans and strategies to distract from that inaction and keep the spin doctors at work. It is particularly bizarre to me that in an area like Ballymun, where rent supplement was banned by ministerial order, and because of the regeneration programme, which is now finished, houses and dwellings can't be bought for social housing because of the social mix. The plan to spend $4.2 million on 22 units in Ballymun, on a site with facilities already in place, roads, paths, and underground services, at a cost of $191,000 each, is absolute madness. When you can buy these places locally in Ballymun, we checked, there are units for sale that are less than $120,000. You know, and these can be bought in other areas, and in areas like Finglas, Ballyfermot, and places like that, for $80,000 less than the price you're paying for modular housing. And they are available, and they could be occupied almost immediately. In Hampton Wood, which is beside the co-op, the site that we're talking about in Ballymun, there are 30 units available at a price that's competitive, already available. 4.2 million would have bought them. I welcome in the motion that it is noted that the new homeless families are coming from the private sector. Will the government now accept the need to properly regulate the private rental market to protect against homelessness? Will the government now accept the private market has every interest in exploiting the crisis and no interest in solving it? Will you accept that your cuts to rent supplement and other basic payments and supports exacerbated the homeless crisis? Will you now accept the need for rent certainty and rent control? Sinn Féin recognises the need for emergency measures for urgent provision for people who are homeless right now. But in the absence of preventative measures, in the absence of social housing provision, the response is hopelessly inadequate. It is like treating a bullet wound with a band-aid, a very expensive one at that. We are not opposed to emergency accommodation. We want it to be temporary, but it is no substitute for building or even buying houses. We have an emergency crisis, almost 5,000 families in a homeless people in a homeless situation, 1,500 children in hotels and B&Bs, and 80 new families a month reported to homeless, and a housing list that has gone up to almost 130,000 applicants. This is a crisis. And what's happening, Minister, we have failed to deliver on social housing. 200 units have been built in the last year. I mean, it's absolute madness. Most of your housing policy is dependent on leasing arrangements, whether it's rent supplement, RAS or HAP, but no building of social housing. And very little planned into the future over your $3.8 billion plan. And there's also a situation where we have a huge amount of people now in mortgage problems. There's 110,000 mortgages in trouble. Of those, 17,000 are in real trouble. 12,000 of them will end up in the courts and will be fought in the courts, but 5,000 will surrender. What do we do? Can we not get our hands on these properties? Can we not get our hands on the NAMA properties that are being sold off for reckless prices? There are solutions. We're not against temporary housing.
Thank you very much, Deputy.
But there are solutions there at the moment that should be looked at.